Hi,
Hey,
Ben. How
Leora.
are you?
I am loving the red wall. That is awesome. It's a power
I,
wall.
yeah, and I love what you have going on. It could be construed in so many different ways.
Yeah, I'm in a spaceship right now. That's basically where I am.
I love it. I was going to say bunk bed, but spaceship is better. So, congratulations on your second lead role in the Nickelodeon project after Bunsen is a Beast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been a dream.
Yeah, and now you're playing the awesome Nate. So, tell everyone a little about Big Nate and about some of his adventures.
Yeah, so Nate is a precocious, mischievous, really confident kid who just gets him and his group of friends into tons of trouble left and right. They do pranks. There's hijinks. It's absolutely bonkers half the time. But what I love about Nate is if he gets his friends in too much trouble, he's a good kid and he recognizes it and he'll be the first to apologize. All of this takes place in PS 38, their underfunded public school that they go to. And there's a real grit to it. It's quite literally in the shadow of the much richer Jefferson Middle School, which is just across the street from PS 38, and that contrast is hysterical. So yeah, it's a precocious sixth grade kid who gets into a lot of trouble with his friends, and the adventures we have gone on in the first season are just an absolute blast.
Yes, perfect description. So, what were you like in grade school? Did you feel destined for awesomeness?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. This show has been like a sixth grade do-over for me because I was kind of introverted as a kid. I didn't really have that many friends. Nate's the opposite. He's like super confident. He's got this great, a tight-knit group of friends. Friendship is really a common thread that you'll see throughout our show. It's the glue that holds the whole show together. But one common bond that I did have is I grew up drawing. I draw, fine art, doodling, and Nate doodles on the show. Our show is a CGI show, but Nate's 2D doodles come to life throughout in various sort of mixed media segments in our show. So having that common bond, voicing a character who draws just as I drew as a kid is a really fun thing. And I think that everyone on the show would say that they are definitely playing heightened versions of themselves. Arnie Pantoja, who plays Teddy Ortiz on our show, is actually my real life writing and improv partner. And so
Oh,
certainly our improv dynamic, our duo, you see that represented in Nate and Teddy on the show. Bryce Charles and I have done a play together before. She's our theater nerd. So we literally bonded over theater. Dee Dee is the theater nerd on the show. So there's just a lot of really fun parallels. And I think everyone on the show would say they are playing elevated versions of their real selves.
did he keep your drawings?
You know what? I do back in Phoenix, Arizona. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. I have like a full closet, just like full of half-finished drawings and paintings from childhood. It's still something I love to do. I love to draw. I just don't have as much time for it these days. But
Right.
it's definitely something I want to spend more time on lately.
Oh. So, Big Nate, the children's books are beloved by so many people, and now the show is going to be beloved by so many people. What were you into as a kid?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I certainly love doodling and drawing. My parents, another sort of Nate similarity, owned a comic book store growing up. So I grew up surrounded by cartoon characters and comics and superheroes.
Wow.
And, I used to sort of pull a comic book out of a box. My dad would be there grading comics at the kitchen table. And I would say, oh, that's a cool, Spider-Man cover. And I would try to draw and reflect the art on it. So, very strange similarities between my real life and Big Nate. So I was certainly into, drawing comics as a kid, and that's kind of what Nate is into as well,
Yeah.
which is just so cool.
Did he have a favorite comic book character?
I mean, I've always been a Superman guy. I love Batman. I'm a DC Comics kind of guy, but I do like the Marvel films better. But I think if Nate were to be asked that question, he would say his favorite superhero is Ultra Nate, which is Nate's sort of superhero version of himself that he doodles all too often on the show. So, yeah, Nate's a fan of superheroes too.
So, what are you excited for fans to see and hear, of course, on Big Nate?
It's a great question. I think the responsibility that I feel in voicing Nate is honoring the source material. There's obviously an iconic comic strip and series of books that has a big global fan base, and they have expectations for what the show should be, and also inviting in a whole new generation of people that might not know what Big Nate is yet. So that's been kind of the dual responsibility. I think the entire team has really achieved that. I think the fans of Big Nate who already know the characters and the relationships and the friendships are going to be really happy with the way we used the source material as the springboard for original storylines in the television episodes. The analogy I like to use is it's a house. The source material is the foundation of the house, the comic strip, the book series, and then all the TV episodes and all of our voice actors. It's just building levels and rooms off that house and really elevating the original material to new heights.
Did you go and revisit the source material just to become more familiar with it?
Oh, 100%. It was really great to, almost retroactively go back and really educate myself on the fervor surrounding Big Nate, so that I could have a point of reference. But at the same time, I'm kind of glad I didn't totally grow up with it because it allowed me to take a very fresh approach to our original scripts, which are again based off of but entirely new stories from the original source material.
Mhm. So you've had some amazing scene partners, amazing collaborators over the years. To name a few: Rashida Jones, James Roday, Cherry O'Terry, and now you have Jack Black, you have Rob Delaney, you have some amazing people to build off of, as you were mentioning. So who would you like to work with again in the future, or new people that you'd like to work with?
No, it's a great question. I mean, it was what a pleasure to have some work with Jack Black on this show. It's probably one of my favorite scenes, actually, in the entire series. Is the scene in the pilot episode where Nate is, sort of questioning his level of awesomeness and has a very sort of mysterious conversation with Brad Gunter, who's played by Jack Black. It's the first time I think we really get to kind of lock in and see, hey, Nate is a real kid with real insecurities and he's not always confident. So provides some really nice balance to the character. In relation to who I would like to work with, I mean, honestly, I just like working with great people. Great, talented, funny people. And I've been so lucky over the course of my career, and I'm so grateful to work with just such wonderful people. I would say I'm an improviser. I love comedic improvisation within the context of a show. I give a lot of credit to our showrunner, Mitch Watson, who lets us riff and improvise with one another. So, huge fan of just anybody that can kind of play and riff. Obviously, like you said, working with Cherry O'Terry on Bunsen as Beast was a real highlight of my career as well. I would say one of my favorite actors is Bob Odenkirk. And so at some point it'd be cool to collaborate with him on something. That's just the first person I would pull out of my head. But I have just such I'm just such a fan of funny people and people who can improvise. And, hopefully I'll continue working with people like that.
I read another interview of yours where you mentioned Bryan Cranston. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that you're mentioning Bob Odenkirk now. Love it very much. So what have you been watching lately that you've been really into?
That's a great question too. It's funny. This is not creative, but I'm a huge basketball fan. I watch a ton of NBA basketball, and I'm quite happy that the league is back at full force after the closures at the beginning of the pandemic. So I watch a lot of basketball on in the background. In terms of creative shows, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I just finished the latest season. Larry David's a comedic genius. I also have like a personal goal of mine to work with everybody from Seinfeld as much as possible. And I've already sort of been checking people off the list. So yeah, huge fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I love, again, I'm a fan of edgy humor. Curb gets away with so much. And, I think Big Nate, in a way, in its own family show way, has edgy humor as well. So there's definitely some parallels there.
Well, thank you so much for your art. I really appreciate it. Have a lovely day. Thank you for this.
So nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
You